Hey, I'm Summer.
And I'm Mike.
And we got married.
With children.
We're married 2 years now.
Blended for 11.
Like a margarita.
Yeah, baby, like a margarita.
And you're listening to the Everything Always podcast.
Want to tell them why we do this?
We do this because blending families isn't easy. There's step-parenting, co-parenting, his ex,
Her ex.
schedules, sibling rivalry,
Money issues.
custody issues.
Dating and relationship issues.
It's a whole lot of stuff.
Blended with a whole lot of good stuff.
And we're here to talk about all of it because we've done most of it.
We might not be experts, but we've learned a lot.
And we're still learning, and we want to share that with you.
Thanks for joining. Now let's go.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Everything Always podcast where we talk about blended families and all the challenges that come with it. Mike and I have some really great episodes that are coming up, and we were actually going to release one of them this week. However, something kept popping up, and I felt like, you know what, we need to go back to this topic and we need to talk about it again. I've had just people in my friend circle that have brought this up and said, can you please do another podcast on this? And we've also been seeing it a lot in our DMs. So I thought, okay, let's go in. Let's talk deeply about this because it's something that people are battling with. And you've heard Mike and I talk about this before, and that is boundaries. And we've talked about this on the show in our earlier episodes and the benefits to enforcing them with certain relationships in order to protect and thrive in your blended family. And when I say protect, I'm really talking about the new relationship that you have. And that's what seems to be coming up. So I'm going to go deeper, and I am probably going to be focused on the relationship that you have right now. So your current spouse, whether you are engaged, is you're dating, but for the sake of the show, it'll be a committed relationship that we're talking about here and how to protect that. And especially when you're wanting to blend your family and there's children involved. And holy cow, it just was like coming up on the daily. And so it was this unanimous decision, like, quick, let's put together all the best things that we know and put this out. So that's what we're doing. So I want to read some of the questions that we've received because I feel like a lot of you who are going through this will relate to these. So I'm just going to read some of the snippets of these and the situations. And if you relate to these and say, oh my gosh, I've totally been there, then I'm going to give you the goods on what you can do to get those boundaries in place ASAP, what those boundaries might look like, and to really make this situation better because I feel you. All right, here they are. So here's one. Summer and Mike, help. I feel like my husband's ex calls him every day over every little thing about the kids. Is that really necessary? Here's another one. My husband's ex-wife keeps insisting that they stay friends because it's better for the kids. But she's a little too friendly. I'm having a hard time expressing this to my husband without sounding like I'm overreacting. Have you been there? Here's another one. We've now gotten to the place where my wife's ex calls every month asking if we can, just this once, loan him some money. He never pays us back, and we keep doing it over and over again. We need to be out of this cycle. Ugh, that is, yes, I've heard that one a lot. When I hear my husband's ex on the phone, it makes me cringe. She calls while she's eating dinner just to chat with him and talk about her day, and I end up sitting there waiting for him to get off. Okay, there's a lot more, and a lot of them have that similar theme of lacking boundaries, right? There's stuff happening that you're just like, you're asking too much, you're overstepping, you're a little bit too involved in our life. And if you're raising your hand, if you get it, we get it too. So what I'm going to say is, before we go any further, is think about this as the foundation of this conversation. Once upon a time, your current partner and his ex were together. Whether they were married or not, they were in a relationship. But guess what? They're not anymore. So when you see things happening that mimic what a couple in a relationship might still be doing, it is totally understandable if it's upsetting to you. Because they're in a different relationship now, not that kind of relationship. And if you're struggling with this, what you'd really like is for the relationship to be about the kids and the essential parts about the kids, the necessary conversations about the kids. So calling up just to vent or asking for money that you're not legally obliged to pay, or asking him to come over to fix your dishwasher, or those type things are really out of bounds, especially if you're trying to create distance and have your own life. So if you find yourself getting upset over the same things, or you find yourself feeling, this just doesn't feel right, just feels a little bit too close for comfort, you're probably right. And there's something going on and you don't have enough distance between that person. And that's really who this episode is for and what it's about. Remember, there are really great privileges that come with being in a committed relationship or marriage. And when you decide to no longer be in that relationship, those privileges go as well. And so if you can think of it that way, it starts to make things easier. At least it did for us when we thought about it that way. Like, that would be a privilege for a married couple or a couple in a very committed relationship, but I'm really not obligated to do that, and I don't really want to. So if you want a successful relationship the next time around with who you're with now, you really want to think about those things. And when you ladies or men say that you're totally cool with your partner being so friendly with their ex, please ask yourself that question again, and then ask it again, because there's no trophy that you're going to get because you are saying that you feel that way. Don't say it unless you really mean it. If you are totally okay with it, then that is awesome. But if there are things that you're not okay, but you're saying you are because you don't want to cause any friction, you are spiting yourself. This is your happiness on the line. And I promise you, that resentment will start to fester. And it just feels so much better to have your partner on the same page as you who will honor those boundaries. Mike and I learned how to create boundaries because we saw what not having them created. Full transparency, I had them on earlier with my ex, and I thank my mother for that, because there were certain things that happened, and she was the one that really clarified, you're not still married. So those things really, you're not obligated. You don't need to feel bad. You don't need to do X, Y, or Z anymore. And then with Mike and I, when we had some oh crap moments, when things got a little out of hand, and that happened in our relationship, like, oh shoot, our relationship is feeling threatened. It was because of boundaries not being in place. And it was Mike who said, okay, what do I have to do? What do we need to do? And we sat together and we came up with what we knew was acceptable for us. Remember, it's going to be individual for different couples. But it was the best thing ever because we were both on the same page, which is where you want to be. And I'm going to go into some of those later and how to come up with those. But here's the thing. Having clear boundaries with your ex will also create healthy relationships with everyone involved. And that includes your current partner, your ex, the other ex, your kids, and even the extended family, because that stuff can be very awkward too. And when I say extended family, I mean extended family on the ex's side. So if you're listening to this, then you might be one of those people who relates to those situations that I noted earlier, and you might be struggling. But know this, if boundaries are weak, what we are risking is being taken advantage of and being disrespected. And I can tell you that 100% when our boundaries were weak, there were definitely situations of being taken advantage of, and especially disrespect. And it just feels so much better when those things aren't happening. We've been there, honestly, it was one too many times. And it's really what made the change happen. And especially if you value your relationship so much, sometimes you don't realize it and you think, no, this is okay and that's okay. You don't realize it until you're about to lose something that's so important and precious in your life. And it's just so important that you have these, because that is what will bring you and your current partner closer. It allows for that intimacy to be more powerful. And if you happen to be listening to this and you're divorced and you don't have that relationship yet, but you're still struggling with boundaries with your ex, these are still going to be helpful. But I promise you, doing that this sooner. And if you're wanting to get into another relationship, it's going to be so important. If you have children with your ex, you're going to continue to be in a relationship, right? As for many, many years as co-parents. And as much as you say, I wish that person wasn't in my life. If we didn't have kids, I wouldn't have to see them. I wouldn't have to interact with them. Life would be so easy, right? Of course, we all think that. We divorced them for a reason. But as much as you want to cut ties completely and you feel like your life would be so magical, you can't, because you still have children together. But I'm telling you, creating those boundaries, you can make it as close to that as possible. So if you are struggling here and you're like, I don't even know what kind of boundaries to create, I thought I'd list a few things that might be going on that I would invite you to consider not allowing to happen anymore. So things like fixing things for the ex. If this is happening in your relationship, whether you're doing it, whether you're having it done for you and your spouse is getting upset, whether he's doing it for his ex, whoever's doing it, it's the coming to the rescue of the other person. That is a relationship privilege. That stuff is for you to do with your partner. That is for you to do for your kids or your parents or maybe a really good friend that's in need, but not the ex. Loaning money, that was the big one, mentioned it before. Whether you're doing it, whether you're asking for it, whether your spouse is doing it, one thing that can be a really big source of drama is money. And if you have something in place that you're legally obligated to pay, then that's what you should take care of. Is it half of this? Is it the full amount of that? Whatever those things are, when you start to stretch, you risk getting taken advantage of. The little bit of extra here can become a lot more extra down the road, and the paybacks don't seem to happen. And this will cause friction in your current relationship, because especially if you are married or you're living together and you're blended, you now have things that you are sharing as a family with finances. And it starts to become an expectation if you're going above and beyond. Okay, here's another one. Social media stalking. Just stop. Just stop. I don't want to hear another person say, I went to go check my ex's page. This is what I found. And can you believe this? Stop looking at his Facebook page. And first of all, it should be blocked. You shouldn't be looking at it at all. There's nothing that you need to see there. If you need to know something, you will know. My rule, exes don't exist on social. They just don't exist. I will never see the name in the feed. I will never see anything. I don't want to know whether it's my ex or his ex or their spouses. No. You will have so much peace in your life if you get off of that social media stalking train. And if they're checking up on yours, block yourself. Don't let that happen. I know there's still ways they find their ways, but as much as you can do, just stop that nonsense. A key to the house. Nope. Who should have a key to your house? You and the people that live at your house. That key does not need to go to anyone else, especially your ex. Totally no. Such a big no. I'm going to tell you a story about that in a minute. It totally reminded me of a story that I heard. Here's another one. Expecting your ex to cheer you up when you have a bad day, or being expected to cheer up your ex when they've had a bad day. And this is also something that I think Mike talked about this on an episode. Just calling up to say, hey, guess what? I just started a new business, or I got a new job, or I got a promotion, things like that. You know what? That's great. However, you're crossing a boundary when those are the things you start to talk about. That's a privilege of a relationship. It's a privilege of a very friendly relationship, a privilege of a marriage. Those types of things, you might go, well, no, we were just friends once upon a time, and we're trying to be friendly right now, and this and that. I promise you, those type things, when you're sharing something with somebody else, you're doing it for some type of a connection. Those connections, out of bounds, especially if you're trying to protect the relationship that you're in. And I'll keep saying this on the side. If you're totally cool with that, if you're totally cool with your ex having a friendly conversation and it's no threat to you, and heck, you might even be friends with his ex too, then that's fine. But don't just say you're fine with it. Really ask yourself, are you fine with it? Remember, your happiness is at stake. And then here's another one that I'm listing, because I've heard this a few times, and then I asked some other people, and I was like, is this really a thing? Is this really a thing that people might overstep and try to get someone else to do? Well, yeah. Hey, it's this one. Trying to get your spouse to go to counseling of some sort. Like, hey, I think you have a problem, and I think you need to go to counseling. So it's actually none of your business. It's none of their business. And that is a boundary. And you might think to yourself, well, no, but my kids are involved. It's quite different if you say, I think our kids need to go to counseling. But when you now put that on your ex, or they're putting it on you, that is crossing a line. That is crossing a line. It's not their business. So think about that one. I hadn't really thought about that as being, a boundary to be crossed until it came up in a conversation. I was like, yeah, you know what? I totally see how that is. I would feel like it was overstepping if I were asked that. I could totally see how, like, you're making a judgment. So yeah, I'm going to leave that as a boundary. So those are things, on either side. Maybe you're doing these things, or it's happening to you, it's happening to your spouse. But those are examples of crossing a line, crossing that boundary, and eliminating them would feel so much better. So much better. So some of you still might be going, but honestly, it's all good. I care about my ex. I want to be sure that they're good. We're super friendly. It's fine. We might have had some drama, but now we don't. It's pretty calm. You're thinking all these things. You're coming up with all the reasons why you don't need to put these boundaries in place. And I've been there. I totally remember being there when it's like, don't I owe it to listen to why my ex is upset about something? That's the father of my kids. Shouldn't I care? Shouldn't I make sure he's okay? But again, that's a committed relationship privilege. You can totally continue to care about him or her without taking on the responsibility of solving his or her problems, relying on him or her for emotional support, or feeling that she or he is invading your personal space. I'm going to say that again. You can totally continue to care about him or her without taking on the responsibility for solving his or her problems, relying on him or her for emotional support, or feeling she or he is invading your personal space. So I'm going to tell you that story of a woman who was in a committed relationship with a man. They both had kids, and she was showing up to his house for a date. And when she showed up, his ex was there picking up the kids. But she wasn't just there at the front door or in the car picking up the kids. She was inside the house, walking around, taking things that she, felt that she could just take, maybe that she still needed, and kind of acted like this was still her space, just acted like she still lived there. And the woman who was going there for her date showed up really excited. She was so excited for their date. And imagine walking into her boyfriend's home and the ex-wife just making herself at home. Just going to grab some things out of the cupboard, just going to grab some things out of the closet, just walking around like it's my kid's home, so it's still my home too. And if you've ever been in a situation like that, I know this story, and it's something that I've heard women talk about, and it makes them uncomfortable. And my viewpoint on it is that it's not appropriate. And I can tell you that maintaining a situation like that will make most people quite unhappy. It goes both ways. If I'm at my house and my boyfriend, if it were Mike and we were dating at the time, and we're at that level where we're serious about our relationship, and even if we were just newly dating, I think it would be uncomfortable if, he came over and my ex-husband were just kind of hanging out, getting some stuff out. Yeah, I'm going to pick up the kids, but while I'm there, I'm also going to talk to you about my day and things that are going on. It's uncomfortable. And what I can also say to this is that sometimes people don't realize how uncomfortable it is for the other person until it happens to them. So until somebody, you both experience that situation. And if that's not likely to happen, maybe you're dating somebody who has kids, but you've never been married. You don't have an ex with kids to deal with. I like to say, well, what if this were you in this situation? How would you feel if you came to my house and I had an ex-boyfriend who was rummaging through, taking all these things, and then stopped to have this whole conversation? It would be uncomfortable. And I know people that still get very uncomfortable with, my gosh, like her ex just showed up and invited himself to have dinner with us. And it was uncomfortable. And you'd be surprised. And I hear it happen so much. And it's just so simple to put those boundaries in, because those things will fester. Those things will fester. So have a conversation. You're with somebody who loves you. I'm pretty sure you're with somebody who loves you. And if that person isn't going to understand the boundaries, that's a whole different podcast. If they're not going to respect those boundaries and put your relationship as a priority, then that is something else that you'll have to think about, because ultimately you need to be happy. But situations like that, like invading the space, becomes invading your space, because as you start to come together, you want to be in a relationship with that person. You're really not asking to have a committed relationship with that one extra person. Hey guys, guess what? We have a new website where you can see all of our podcasts and get easy access to the show notes, everything we talk about on the episodes, and you can even listen to the podcast directly from the site. You can contact us through the site and share your thoughts and questions. Check it out at www.everythingalways.co. That's www.everythingalways.co.
And you can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Everything Always Co. We just set it up, and we'll be sure to put important announcements there.
And we love that this podcast has been so helpful to so many, and our hope is to share it with even more. So can you help us? Will you take a moment now or after the episode to subscribe to the podcast, write a review, and share it? It would mean the world to us, and it helps us to keep bringing you the best content.
Come on, we appreciate you guys. So what do you say, baby? Back to the episode?
Back to the episode. So something that I have dealt with is the nice person / people pleaser syndrome. And I have recently talked about this on one of our episodes. Okay. I know you want to be a nice person, some of you, and some of you might be like, no, I have got these in place. I am good. I am not afraid to stand up for myself. But some of you might be hearing this and saying, but I'm a nice person and I just want all of us to get along. And isn't that better for the kids? I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. You know what? Awesome. You have empathy. I think that's one of the most important qualities in a human being. And it's really, really awesome. But take it from someone who knows nice people run the risk of being people pleasers. And people pleasers can easily find themselves sabotaging their own happiness to please others. Been there, been there, been there. So this leads me to a situation where I've certainly found myself in. Not only can two exes have trouble setting boundaries, but sometimes the new partner has problems setting boundaries with his or her ex. Crazy business, right? But it's true. It's totally true. There have been times where it's like, wait, he doesn't even get along with his ex at all, but his new girlfriend totally does. And it causes problems for him because he's like, yeah, I would kind of prefer you not being besties with my ex-wife. So those type of situations have definitely occurred. And where I think some of this comes from, and not all the time, maybe they totally are, have gotten along and they are friends. But where I can see things like this happening is when you are a nice person, when you are a super people pleaser, people know how to take advantage of that. And it's sad, but it's true. And if they know that they can, they will. They can smell you a mile away and they love to get their hands on you. Why? Because they know that you will probably say yes to their requests. You probably don't like confrontation if you're in this situation and they know this. And so they're like, I could probably get my way. So when they can't get the answer they want from their ex, they'll then come to you. When they don't get the attention they want from their ex, they'll come to you. And it's all the more reasons to have boundaries in place. There have been, certain things that Mike and I have asked of each other to put boundaries into place. I've seen this with other couples where it's just like, I don't like that my ex is texting you, my new partner. Oh, she couldn't get a hold of me, so now she's trying to get it from you. Things like that make them upset. Or, hey, I feel like you guys were a little bit too friendly. So these are things like that you really have to communicate with your ex. So how do you do this? Okay, let's just talk about now how to do these. So first, make a list of the reasons you need to tighten up your boundaries. Like, why does this need to happen? Are there certain fights happening often? Is it causing fights between you and your spouse now? Is there drama amongst the kids? Like what's happening that you need to tighten up the boundaries? Are there things happening that really make you uncomfortable? I really don't want my ex coming in and crashing our happy hour party just because she's picking up or dropping off the kids. I really don't want that happening anymore. It upsets me. What are those things? So make a list of them. Then, whether you are going to go through this with your ex, the person that you're actually trying to set these boundaries with, or with your current spouse, try to be as calm as you can when you state your position. It doesn't need to be dramatic. It's just, think of it as simply being assertive. Hey, from now on, please don't come inside my house. Very simple, and that's it. You don't even have to have reasons. You could just say, I'd like you to respect my boundaries, and here are a list of those boundaries. Please don't come inside my house. Please don't message my wife. Please don't ask me for money outside of what I'm legally obligated to pay you, things like that. If you're listening to this and you're like, gosh, I really need to go over this with my wife or my husband, then try to do that as calmly as possible. And I think that you'll be met with some logic and reason and total understanding. Sometimes people don't realize it because for them, it isn't a threat. Like for somebody, they might go, yeah, it's kind of annoying that she always comes in my house and just thinks that she still lives here. But there's no threat of we're going to get back together or we're so friendly and it's one day going to go somewhere. There's no threat of that to them. So they don't think it's a big deal. They don't see it from your perspective of that makes me feel really uncomfortable to not know whether I'm going to show up and she's going to be there. Does that make sense? So calmly and rationally talk to your spouse about these things. And I would bet that if they're as wonderful as I'm hoping they are, you will be met with total reason. When you are then presenting these to the person that you are inserting these boundaries with, just be really firm. And if you have to, restate your position on it if it happens again. Sometimes you just have to continue as if the boundaries are already in place. So maybe you're changing the locks, maybe you're changing the code, whatever that is. And that person is like, wait a minute, I can't get in anymore. Yeah, we changed that. And it's just going to be our family that's going to be inside of our house and whoever we invite in. Totally fine. Okay, so now let's look at some examples. I just stated some. So those were, your ex, my ex, not allowed inside of our home. We don't answer calls or texts when we're out on dates during these certain times, unless it's an emergency. Things like if it's not about the kids, don't engage. We've talked about this in terms of limiting drama. If they're calling to talk about their day, or they're calling to say they're going to talk about the kids and it turns into something else, get off the phone and don't engage. If it falls outside of a legal financial obligation, don't offer more, don't ask for more. This is both sides, by the way. So when I say these things like the exes are not allowed inside the home, respect the same thing and don't go inside your ex's home. When it comes to the money thing, have a boundary of not asking for more. If the ex is trying to talk to you about something, so if the ex is trying to talk to you, the new partner, so his ex or her ex is trying to talk to you about something, have him handle it. Let him know, hey, so-and-so reached out. I'm going to let you handle that. Especially if you're finding that we need to create a boundary here, especially if that is an issue for you. If he or she is calling to vent about something, tell him to call his friend instead. Tell her to call her mom instead. It doesn't need to be you just because you were the ex-spouse. If a text is sent that is non-business related, that is trying to stir up emotion, good or bad, ignore it. Sometimes when you have to put boundaries in place, you can tell the person and make them aware of what the new boundaries are going to be. But oftentimes it's not going to be accepted. And I'm about to go into that. So you just have to behave with your own set of boundaries. So when I say if something is sent and it's good or bad and it's non-business related, meaning not related to financials or necessary items that need to be handled with the kids, ignore it if it's something that's trying to stir up emotion. So let me give you an example. You are sitting at dinner with your spouse and they receive a text message. This actually happened. Actually, I'm gonna tell a real story. We were at dinner with friends, and I think maybe it was about 4 or 3 couples, and 2 of the couples, us included, were remarriages, the second marriage, and one of the couples had just received a text message of old pictures, like kids being really little, picture of himself, picture of like an old friends. And he kind of just, looked down and saw this and was just like, why the heck why the heck is she sending me this? Does this happen to you guys? And then, it was an interesting conversation, I will say that. But, I thought to myself, you know what? That's kind of crossing. Like, why was that necessary? And I think that some people would say, oh, it was just so fun. We had fun times. And so I wanted to send that. But the only reason you'd really be sending something like that, in my opinion, is to stir up some type of emotion. It stirred up an emotion in them enough to see that, and they wanted to share that. And so they're looking for connection. And so again, that connection is the privilege of a committed relationship. What you now share is a relationship strictly about the kids, unless, of course, you are wanting to have a close friendship and that type of co-parenting relationship. But again, this episode is not for those people. That's different, and that's wonderful if you can achieve that. But the majority of the people that we have spoken to don't want that. They want these boundaries in place. And so that is something that if you receive, you can simply ignore it. You can simply accept it in your mind. Okay, you sent that, and then that's it, and discard it. So those type things, the reason those things are dangerous is because they lead to something more. And don't be naive and think that they don't. I want you all to be smart enough and know that they lead to more. That one little picture stirs up a conversation, and now that person is trying to get in more. So as we have our list. Mike and I have our list. Those are just some examples that I wanted to share with you. Some of them just examples. But I will say this. We aim to be kind. We aim to be 100% transparent with each other and all the things that happen when it comes to exes. So we're pretty much in the know of all the things and conversations. He shares it with me and I share with him. And that's just kind of been an agreement for us so that we know, what's happening with the kids, what's the viewpoint of this parent, all of that. What was said to you, or hey, I received this, thought it was inappropriate, wanted to show it to you, or okay, awesome. And what that does is just develop a whole ton of trust. So we look at everything as a team. We're in this together. This is our family. And number one priority is that we protect our relationship and the dynamic of our family. And if that means that sometimes you have to be firm, then you have to be firm. And usually that happens right at the beginning when you begin making changes. Your stress and anxiety will probably increase because you're used to responding and reacting to more things. And this is normal. This is totally normal that you're going to be like, but I feel like I should say something, but no, you're not going to. Or I feel so rude that I didn't invite him inside. No, it's okay. You're going to have those feelings of anxiety, and it's totally normal, but it's not going to last. And soon enough, super soon, as you start to implement this, you will get used to behaving differently and your anxiety will decrease. It's also going to decrease because you'll start to see results. But at first you won't. At first you won't see results. At first, your changes will be met with resistance, for sure. The person will not like it. They will not like the decrease of attention, and they might even get angry about it. Also totally normal. Remember, they want that comfort of knowing what they can expect from you. So as you implement these changes, that person will still try to maintain the old relationship patterns. But you always gave me extra money. But you were always there for me when I had a bad day. They got used to that. And there may be conflict that may ensue. But please don't panic. That conflict isn't always a bad thing. In this case, at this stage, it's actually a reflection that you're doing something and making changes to make your life better. So stay true to what you want to happen within your family, because it's not selfish. It is not mean to set these boundaries. It is not mean or selfish. Please, please know that. You do not have to do things to make your ex happy. That is not your responsibility. And on the other side, if you feel like you've been doing these things, it's not your ex's job to make you happy. And also think about having respect too. Is he or she in a relationship and you're overstepping? Would you want that done to you? Think about that. Think about that. What kind of person do you want to be? You can meet your own needs. And what we've discovered is that you can do all of this and still be a nice person. It doesn't mean you have to be pleasing anyone. You can be friendly. You don't have to be friends. It is such an important piece in a blended family relationship. And I'm really glad that there was enough people to make me say, okay, we're going to talk about this again. And I'm hoping that this is helpful and that it's relating to a lot of you. And it is challenging. And I get it. I get it more than you know. I so get it. So what I want to say as I close this is you might be thinking, what happens if I slip up on these boundaries? Well, I can tell you firsthand, you probably will. It totally happens. It's happened with both of us, and then we have to get ourselves back in check. Sometimes the boundaries are working so good, and everyone's like, wow, this is pretty peaceful. It's like business. This is so awesome, that you start being less stingy with them. And that's when danger starts to happen. So, you think, oh my gosh, things are calm. So, you know what? Things have been fine. So I guess it's okay for him to come inside the house. Or, you know what? Normally I'd let that go to voicemail because I know there's nothing urgent, but I guess it's okay that I can answer right now. Or it sounds like he had a really bad day and I don't want to be a jerk. I mean, we're past all that, right? Can I just check in? Here's the thing. It becomes very dangerous when you don't respect the boundaries, because what happens is you risk your current relationship and the trust that is there. So if you and your current partner created these boundaries and then you're now letting some things slide, it's going to bring back and open up some old wounds. And if you've heard Mike and I talk about how to create boundaries, you know that we talk about coming up with those together. So if you're doing this alone and then you're presenting it, I would also ask your partner to come up with what they see are good boundaries. But the thing is that in that exercise of coming up with them together, you've made this promise to each other that you're going to commit to those boundaries. And when you do that, it makes you both feel so good because you've put your relationship at a priority level. So, or it is as a priority. So if you then let those slide, it's undoubtedly going to make that other person feel like less of a priority. And of course, there's going to be friction and ill feelings. The other thing is that it's okay if you've slipped up, right? But you want to get right back to it, because you've heard that expression, give them an inch and they'll take the yard, they'll take the mile. You've heard this, and we know this, and Mike and I know this very well. And I'm sure you've been there too, in any kind of situation where you give a bit of lenience and all of a sudden it turns into the situations that you used to hate before. So, you know what, we'll try this. We'll do this. It can't be so bad. And then all of a sudden, it's all coming back. All of those things that used to bug you are all coming back. So just be very careful. And here's a really big thing too with not respecting the boundaries and not being firm with them, is that you actually start to cause confusion for the kids. So not respecting boundaries actually causes more drama and trauma, which is totally unnecessary, the type that's totally unnecessary. See, having boundaries is like protecting against the drama, right? So it's like warding it off. It's like way less likely for drama to happen if we have these boundaries in place. So if you're not allowing the things that could cause drama and you're not engaging in the things that could cause drama, you're probably not going to have any drama. So being too friendly could cause drama. Letting him or her into your home or allowing that phone call during your date, those are the things that could open up drama. So what happens when it comes to the kids is that they see you one day being super friendly and they get excited. Yay, mom and dad are super getting along. I love this. But then you're so friendly that one or the other starts to have more expectations. Like, well, why is he not answering my call? I wanted to tell him about this thing, or I wanted to tell him about this funny incident because he knows this guy and it'll be cool to share it with him. But now he's not answering. Okay, so now that expectation doesn't get met and now she's upset and it spirals out of control. Or it's, you know what? We've been really good about having boundaries with finances, but she couldn't make her rent payment. And so we helped. And now the next month when she needed help again, he's not giving it. So now it's like this, okay, you're not totally firm with the boundaries. You have them sometimes, and then sometimes you don't. Things will get heated because these expectations are not met. The attention is not being received, and it turns into an argument. And suddenly old wounds are opened up, and then they hate each other again. And the kids are like, oh, mom and dad are now angry at each other again. And then there's name calling, smack talking, and then it creates that horrible situation for them. Horrible, horrible. And they're sad again, and they're upset. But if you have clear boundaries and you remember that the sole purpose of these is to keep the calm, and that the only reason you need to have this relationship with the ex is for the well-being of the kids, you're so less likely to have any of this drama, which actually displays maturity for your children and a sense of security that no matter what, you guys can handle yourselves and be there for them. So be an example for them. And you can do this so greatly by having firm boundaries in place. Okay, I went through a lot there, and I hope that this was helpful. Share it with somebody who needs to hear it. Please let me know if you are one of those people, those situations. I didn't name any names, but if any of those were you, feel free to DM us, send us a message on Instagram. We now have our Instagram set up, and we're going to do a better job of sharing more and posting more there. But it's Everything Always Co. We're also everythingalways.co. You can email us at summer@everythingalways.co. And email us. We love hearing from you. We love these stories, and we want to help as much as we can and share with you the things that work. I'm so passionate about sharing the things that work because it just makes a tremendous difference. And this is something that has probably made the biggest difference in our relationship and in our family dynamic. So thank you guys again for listening, and we can't wait to talk to you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. Our goal is to bring you all kinds of value that will help you navigate these challenging waters of blending a family.
Reach out to us if there's something specific you want to hear.
And don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast.
And if you really like it, share it with someone you love.
Ooh, and be bold enough to share it with someone you don't.